Hi, I'm Krista Weber, and this is my presentation for my social app, Tennis Match. I'll start with the idea. Tennis Match is a social media app for tennis players. The goal is to connect players with shared goals and provide a central hub for all tennis stats. Just a little more about shared goals. Specifically, I'm referring to similar skill level. Tennis is not very fun when players aren't evenly matched. Every player has different things they're looking for. Some want tennis to be a social experience, and others are fiercely competitive and aren't playing tennis to make friends. And finally, an important aspect of the app is to connect to people close by. It doesn't do much good to match players with similar goals that live on opposite sides of the country. One thing that makes this app unique is that it solves the problem of providing a central location for all tennis stats. Currently, the USTA has their app and website, and it's pretty bad. And then it's pretty much a free-for-all regarding non-USTA sites. It runs the gamut from individual league websites to leagues where everyone emails their results to a league coordinator and they don't know where they stand until the winners are announced. First persona is Tamara. Tamara is a competitive player. She's a team captain and weekday player, and her primary goal is to make winning teams. She's always on the lookout for promising players. She spends a lot of time scoping out other teams when she's preparing lineups. She currently writes in a notebook after each match, but it's hard to find things when she needs them. She wastes a lot of time going to various sites trying to find stats on players. Next is Steven. Steven's a casual player who just wants to play after work once or twice a week. He's extremely busy with his career and he doesn't have a ton of time and energy to invest right now. He wants to find players nearby to play friendly matches. He knows he feels less stressed when he exercises, and once his life calms down, he's going to want to get more involved in tennis. In the meantime, he just wants to keep his skills up with as little investment as possible. So for the prototype, the 4 tasks were account creation and setup, viewing and editing their profile, making connections, and viewing the schedule and adding a match. And just to show progression through the prototype and how it's evolved, I'm going to follow each task through and go through low fidelity, research iteration, and high fidelity. First is account creation. Because the user has to register in order to use the app, the goal was to provide users with benefits of using the app so that they'd be willing to register. I also attempted to keep account creation simple, allowing them to connect with Google or Facebook and not collecting extraneous information. Next is account setup. Provide users the reason to do the account setup, show their progress through it, and celebrate their milestones. So research findings and recommendations. The problem was that users could type information in the other field, but unless they selected the button, their information was not recorded. And the solution was once a user starts typing, the button is automatically selected, and you can see that in the animation here. Here is the high fidelity for the account location and setup. You can see here where they are setting up an account. And then here is the actual process of answering the questions. Here they're choosing activities that they would like to find other players to connect with. And you can also see the fix here of the button that when they start typing, the button gets activated. Next is editing the profile. The goals were to provide visual indications that an area is editable, allow users to add a profile pic to personalize it, and encourage engagement via call to action buttons. Findings and recommendations. The only problem was that users wanted to see where people are located in their profile information, and this wasn't in the initial prototype. And the solution was simply to add the user's location to their profile and then allow them to edit it. And here is a high fidelity walkthrough. This is a user looking at another user's profile. You can see that they can look at their connections, look at the teams they're in. Grayed out teams are teams that the season is over, so they're no longer playing. And then you can view the user's activity feed. Next is making connections. There are different ways to connect because this is really a big focus of the app. First is connecting with tennis players who are nearby. Second is players in the user's contacts. And the third is suggested by the app. So here you can see the screens for nearby connections. The first thing was to explain why they should enable location sharing, allow them to save time by searching through long lists, and provide visual confirmation when a connection is made. Next is connecting with contacts in their phone, and the interaction is basically the same as the last one. Next is suggested contacts, is where the app matches players based on their preferences, skills, locations, and goals, and it shows why the connection was suggested and then provides visual confirmation. Next is viewing the connections that they've made. It allows users to search through long lists and provides easy way to delete connections, and finally link to the connections profile page. Research and findings on this. The problem was that when viewing the connections, the user already has made, it's the most used tab, but it was actually third on the list. And the solution was to move the connections tab so that it's the first. Here is a walkthrough of making the different kinds of connections. The first is an explanation of why they should enable location sharing. and once they do click on that, they have to give permission. And here is an explanation for each player that's nearby of the things that they have in common, so the user can make an informed decision. You can see visual confirmation of connections. Next, they're going to click on contacts to add players who are using the app that they already know that are in their phone's contacts, and an explanation of why they should do that. And then here there's no explanation of what they have in common because these are users that they already know that are in their phone contacts. And finally, we have suggested contacts, and this is made by the app. And so the app does provide an explanation of why they're a good match. You can see that if they ignore it, the person is grayed out. And then once they've added all these connections, they can go and view them, and this is the main screen to view the connections. The final task is to view the schedule and add a match. Sort by showing all upcoming or completed matches. This helps because the list can be quite lengthy if it's a very busy tennis player. Also, allow users to add a match. This relies on crowdsourcing for all non-USTA data. Actually adding the match, the goals were to show progress on the main add to match screen, pre-fill options, but still allow users to create new if necessary, show already made choices rather than relying on memory, and provide confirmation of success. Some findings and recommendations. The first problem was that the add a match button was hard to find on the schedule page. The solution is move the button to the top rather than making the user scan the entire screen to find it. Another problem was it wasn't clear to users that hitting the back button actually recorded the choices that they had made, and the solution was to provide users with a submit button in addition to the back button. Next is the users weren't sure what was required and what was optional when adding a match. The solution was to mark required fields clearly and disable the submit button until all required fields are submitted. Here you can see the process of viewing their matches and going through the schedule. Right now they're looking through their schedule, and you can see here those are some matches that are over, and so the scores have been entered. It even explains how the win was confirmed. This person's choosing to add a match. You can see the changes here where required fields are clear and the add a match button is disabled currently. Here they're choosing a league from the list. Next they're going to add a team, and the recommended team is based on the fact that this person is a member of the team. Next, opponents, and here they can scroll to the list of opponents, and if they can't find the one they want, they could add a new one, or they can choose from the list. The location, they're going to add the location information, and they can add new, also links to Google Maps. And here they're just going to add the date as the final thing that they need to do to be able to add a match. This date picker looks a little different on the cell phone. It looks like a typical date picker. And now they're going to add the match to the schedule, and they can see a confirmation. That's all. Thanks.